So I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning, so forgive me if my voice goes away. So that's the first thing about morning drive is you are getting up when you normally are going to bed. So if you want to do a morning show, know that your life's going to change. Although naps rock pretty hard. So it's always good. And I can sleep anywhere. I slept on the drive in here and I was driving, so we're good. I've been in radio 35 plus years. I'm in my 36th year right now. So I started at 17. It's what I wanted to do, I think, when I was 6 years old. I wanted to do something with music because I loved music. And it was more about the music than really wanting to be a star. Or I knew a friend when I was 11. And I grew up in New Hampshire, so I had a friend when I was 11 that used to take me into the station in the morning at 4 a.m. on a Saturday. He'd pick me up and I'd go to Vermont with him into the radio station and just hand him his 45s. That's when we were actually playing 45s. So from there, luckily our high school had a class like this one in New Hampshire. We had a Vo-Tech Center and we had a station that broadcast over the cable. And back then, cable had just begun, so there were 12 channels, and we were channel 6, the high school station, so we broadcast on the channel. And that was, from there, got a full-time job when I was 17, working 6 to midnight at a local station, and then I would go to school during the day. Did that for about 4 months, and when I graduated high school, I just luckily stayed in radio. So I got this kind of class my last 2 years of radio. It was 2 hours a day, and I've been doing it ever since. So who in here wants to do radio? Radio. Yeah. And any TV peeps in here? Producers, and maybe both. I did 190 North for a short time, ABC. They've canceled the show since, but it wasn't my fault. So I did a little TV. I've done that in my life, but radio is really where I wanted to be and where I am. And I was in Chicago for many years, worked with a guy named Kevin Matthews here, spent 8 years with him. But I've been here about 13, 14 years. I had spent the 10 before that in Boston. And it's really all I ever wanted to do, but it's about knowledge, it's about working hard, it's knowing what you want to do. Sports radio people, who wants to do sports talk? Anyone here? So let's say we're doing a show, and it's really about knowing what's going on today. It's, if I said Michael Sam, would you be uncomfortable taking a shower with Michael? You wouldn't? In the locker room? I mean, that's the latest thing that's out there. And you have to have an answer. I mean, you have to be able to have that conversation. So who wants to be like a co-host to a morning show, female co-host? You bring up the subject of Justin Bieber, and the video was just released of him in jail. Do you know what it was? What he was doing in the video?
Urinating in the jail cell.
Urinating in the jail cell, exactly right. So it's
another bucket.
Yeah, right.
Was he using the bathroom into a urinal, or it was just like?
I think they were trying to get a sample out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the video was rolling, and I mean, I haven't watched it, but they're worried that, they're worried that the ceiling camera is going to pick up. They say there's private parts being shown, so that's good news for him, that you can actually see it from that distance. So I'm not going to judge him there. But it's really, it's about staying on top of things. Radio has changed a lot, because when it started, it was mostly news. FM was beautiful music when I got into it. There was no rock and roll on the FM dial, and it used to run on, it was syndicated, ran on machines, automated. There were just reel-to-reel tapes in there. And now the FM has taken over as being music, but back then there was no classic rock, because at the time, you were still playing, current songs. Everyone lived together in music. I played anything from the Temptations to Pat Benatar to AC/DC on the same station. And that was what Top 40 was when I started. There was no rock and then just this and all that. There were heavy rock stations, but other than that, everyone lived together. So now everything has become a piece of the pie. I think, how many stations here in Chicago? There's got to be 4 or 5 that are all playing the same songs. I mean, from the Mix to 93.9 to Kiss FM, they're all the same thing. Where, it's what format you want to go in, what age you're in. I mean, do we have classic rock people here?
Yeah.
So that's what you like, and do you follow, current news on them? Anyone know one of the songwriters that's going into the Songwriter Hall of Fame from the classic rock genre? So these are things you kind of stay on top. But radio today for me, is less about the music. It's become more about the entertainment factor. I mean, there's always little things that you can throw in about the artist. Everyone can find the same information. But what it's turned into is more about your life and tying your life in to what's going on today and being able to share your life. So you have to take your experiences when you're in radio and somehow tie it in a 15, some formats. I mean, I'll play some of these, but I'll talk 3 to 4 minutes, play 2 songs, or 3 to 5 minutes, 4 minutes worth of commercials, 2 songs, and the same thing over. And we do that 4 times an hour. So in an hour, I'll talk anywhere from 12 to 18 minutes and no more. The rest is, we play quite a bit of music for a morning show. So you got to pick your topics. You want to get the callers involved. But it's a great business. 35 years later, I know I have a few years left in me. I think as long as you stay in touch with what's going on. But as you get a little older in this business, I'm touching people in classic rock more, well, not physically, but I knew this was coming. So I'm talking about, my kids. I have a 23-year-old and a 10-year-old. They're both boys. I had a little, dry spell in the middle there somewhere. So, but I'll talk about my 10-year-old school, and I'll talk about my 23-year-old who's in college and graduating this year. And you bring in your life. I'm divorced, so I'm remarried with a woman that has 2 kids, and one of her kids is a transgender gay male. And I've been with her since that process began. So I talk about that. I mean, before you would never bring up those topics on the radio, but in today's society, everything goes. And it's all in how you present it. We have fun with it. I had him on right before he was a he, and then in the process, talked to him for a couple of minutes about it. And he had started taking testosterone, so he sounded like Pete from the Brady Bunch because his voice was cracking all the time. But I probably got more phone calls from that 2-minute interview from people saying, thank you so much for shedding some light on a topic that no one talks about, but it's my life. That's, I got a kid was Carly and is now Carson, and we probably had more information about other people in that same situation saying, we're really glad you covered that topic because we have friends, or my son, or my daughter, and Bruce Jenner now. So everyone's dealing with it some way or the other. So it's those kind of things and how you can present them, because there are a lot of things you can't do on the radio that I could do back then. I mean, you could get away with some swears before, and now you're the one that gets the fine if it gets through. And do you know how that works with the FCC, how you get fined?
No.
So what it is just because a swear goes out on the radio, and I'm not telling you to swear, but if someone were to report it to the FCC and then they investigate, then you get fined. Just for swearing, you're not going to get fined, but that's the last thing I need, because it's still up to the boss whether he wants to fire. And we're on delay. We're in a delay system of 15 seconds in the morning because you're taking live calls. I was interviewing, I think, Uriah Heep or some band, Foghat, I think it was actually, and this was only 5 years ago, and they were doing a tour in St. Charles. And I remember him talking about some band from America thought they were great, and he said they thought we were the shits. And to me, it wasn't like he said he was taking one. And that's where when you say it that way, that's where the FCC has big problems when you talk about urine, any kind of fluids or any of that stuff. That's the big problem. So I thought I hit the dump button, no pun intended, but I thought I hit the dump button, but what I hit was the exit button, which slowly counts it down. So shit came on the air. And I didn't think about it until after the show. My boss said, shit came. I said, yes, I do, I guess. I hit this button. He said, well, that's the exit button. The dump button's the red one. And I said, well, I hit the wrong one. So I got suspended for 3 days, just as an example. He wasn't angry, but I got suspended 3 days for allowing that. And it wasn't me who said it, but still, you're responsible for your show. So you have to be careful about that kind of stuff. But someone said ass this morning, and I didn't even go to dump it. It wasn't in a, I did some survey question about if there was one thing that with Valentine's Day coming up, that there's one thing you could change about your mate, what would it be? And this woman was explaining that she wishes her husband was more romantic, and she just said he's a pain in the ass. So I didn't take it literally, so we were okay. So in my career, and I will tell you this as you start out in radio, go work wherever you can. Don't worry if it's not the format you want to be in. Don't be choosy. Get in, learn, whatever you can do. If it's not the position you want, but it's an available position, a lot of jobs I got was getting in the door, and I didn't care what it was. Luckily, I started 6 to midnight, but I did a few overnight shifts, not many, but nights, moved down to afternoons, moved back to nights, and back and forth. But get in. And internships, we hire a lot of interns at 95.9 The River. They come in, they'll work with Val, our marketing person. They want to be on the air, but there's not an internship on the air, or there's a production internship. We get to know these people, we see them, and if they want to do something on the show, a lot of times I'll just grab them and start talking about them. You know, I'll say, hey, this is Bill, he's an intern, wants to get into sports, and start talking to him, and we get our banter up, and maybe once a week he comes in and we start talking, and he becomes a character. Of course, I make fun of him left and right. That's what we do. You find this one guy was so eager to be on the radio. When he walked into the studio, I swear to God, his eyes came out of his head and hit me in the shoulder. He had bulging eyes, and it was just like, I want to be on your show, and I love your show, and I listen every day, and I wake up. So this is all on the air, and this guy became a character because he was just so eager. But he was on the show twice a week. And I mean, we trashed him, but his mom actually called one day and said, why do you pick, and she was foreign of some sort. He was pretty Americanized, but she goes, why do you pick on my son all the time? I said, I'm just Ed, he's a good sport. And then meeting her, she wasn't very happy with me. But none of it was really mean-spirited, but the kid was off the wall. I mean, he's like shaking when he's on the air because he's so excited. And I would say, hey, calm down, and what is wrong with you? Did you take your meds this morning? Or if I was down, I'd say, whatever you're having, I'd like one of those. But that's what you do. But take that job, go in at the bottom level. You can, if you work hard, they see it, we see it, we know someone that would. And if I had a co-host that left and I thought an intern could come in and do the position, I would just as happily have someone younger on my show, because I'm at 52, so I would much rather have someone that connects to the younger audience. So I'm preparing my show, I get up at around 3:15, I'm in the station by 4:20, 4:30. We go on there at 5:30. So I do all my audio, all my sound bites audio. I write all my stories, sports, the news, find all my entertainment news, pull all those audio drops. But prep services certainly help you. Morning show prep services give you all that audio. But it's getting everything together and ready to go. So I don't have a lot of time. Once the show's on, you're just thinking out of the box. I don't plan a lot. I open the microphone and I may have a little story there. And Joanne, my co-host, and we've only been together about 8 months now, she has no idea sometimes what I'm going to talk about, and we'll just throw it at her, and she's got to be ready to go. And I always can tell when she's not ready to go because she'll repeat my question. And that's when you know, hey, is there anything you want to change about your husband? And she will say, is there anything I want to change about? So finally I called her out on it on the air. I said, do you realize every time I ask you a question, you say the question? I said, if you don't have an answer, just tell me and I'll ask our listeners. And so we kind of fight a little bit on the air. She calls me OCD. I have my stuff set up, 35 years, and then it's out of place and you start freaking out. But we talk about everything, and you have to, as you go through life, and you're all fairly young, and remember those things, because you're going to want to draw upon them. And when they start, oh, I remember when I went to this baseball game with my dad. I mean, people want to hear that, because emotionally you have to relate to your audience. It's about emotions. Songs are emotions. If I hear a song from Boston in 1976, peace of mind, I'm back at the Orlando, Florida with my brother on the beach trying to pick up chicks. That's what happens, is they take you to a place, so when you share those places, it sparks conversation, and people will immediately call and say, yeah, I remember when I heard, the first time I heard this song, I was. And so that's important too. A lot of people are going to have your opinions. A lot of people are going to disagree. Never going to make everyone happy. You just won't. So you do the best you can and just be honest to yourself. But it's a great business. It's changed. When I was in the last 15 years, because there were companies all over the place. If you got fired from one radio station, the one across the street would take you the next day. Now there's 5, 6 companies that are mainly owning them, all the stations. So it's a lot harder to go from, you know, if you screw someone over at Clear Channel, you got some serious problems across the country trying to find a job or whatever company it happens to be, because they own Cumulus and they own them all. So try to go in and do the best you can.